All right, welcome into another Auburn Live show. I am Justin Hokanson. Appreciate everybody for joining us. This is auburnlive.com, part of the On3 Sports Network, as we come to you to talk about an eventful happenings in Auburn football that are going on. Obviously, early signing day happened. We had all coverage of that at auburnlive.com from our guys Jeffrey Lee and Cole Pinkston. So that has come and gone, and now it is starting to get the focus back on football as Bryan Harsin met with the media at the Birmingham Bowl press conference in Birmingham, Alabama on Thursday. It was actually the first time he's met with the media in a capacity of talking about the football team since the Iron Bowl. We met with him on Wednesday, but it was strictly about recruiting. He didn't field any questions about the team or any of Bo Nix, anything like that. It was all recruiting, signees, things like that. So it's the first opportunity to really talk about his team and his program since the Iron Bowl. And so obviously a lot to cover, and so that's what we're going to kind of talk about today. The big news, I think, would be that it looks like 4 Auburn players will miss the bowl game, 3 of which are going to opt out. We knew about Nick Brahms, the center, had surgery on his leg and was going to miss the game. We knew Roger McCreary, who's a first-round draft pick, would likely opt out. I mean, there's not a lot of reason to play a bowl game. I mean, you could make the argument to play and not leave your teammates and all that, but when you're a first-round draft pick or a mid-first-round draft pick, sort of understand. Zacoby McClain will also opt out. Of course, he's playing in the Shrine Bowl. And so that was kind of a signal that he was out. He's a senior. He could have had he had a COVID year, but he's going to attempt to go pro. He's also not going to play in the bowl game. And then a little bit of a surprise, Brodarius Ham, Auburn's offensive lineman, Auburn's right tackle, is also going to opt out. He announced that he was going to enter the NFL draft. He's a senior, but he has a COVID year of eligibility. So not necessarily shocking that he entered the draft, but a little bit surprising. I thought he might come back, but a little surprising that he's not playing in the bowl game. He's a guy that he's got the physical attributes, to be a really good player. He did an okay job for Auburn. I don't think he was stellar. So skipping the bowl game is an interesting decision for him, but nonetheless, that puts Auburn 4 players down, and then if you combine that with the 4 players that already transferred out, which was Sean Shivers, Tayshawn Manning, who is your reserve guard who played a ton of football, Elijah Canning, and Ladarius Tennyson, you're talking about now up to 8 players out for the game, and of those 8, you're talking about McClain, McCreary, Ham, Brahms, all starters. Manning has started some games and is certainly a guy that plays at guard, and then Tennyson is your nickel guy too. So definitely some starters and contributors that Auburn will be without. That linebacker position looks like it's going to be tough for that bowl game. Owen Papo, Bryan Harsin actually mentioned that Owen Papo may practice leading up to the bowl game, but I wouldn't imagine he's going to play. He missed 7 of the last 9 games, and so I don't really know what good it would do for him to try to come back and play, but it looks like he may practice. And all signs, of course, continue to point for him to come back next season. So I guess it's not ruled out that he plays, but it sounded all we really know is that Harsin kind of said that he was going to be back out there practicing some. So maybe he plays. I don't know. That would certainly be big because Auburn, obviously, without Zacoby McClain, your linebacking core takes a big hit if all you have is Chandler Wooten out there against a good Houston offense. Bryan Harsin did mention a few linemen. Jaleel Irvin will probably start at center, I would imagine. He's getting more reps. Brendan Coffey, Colby Smith, and Garner Langlow were all players that Harsin mentioned getting more reps across the offensive line. So that's going to be a tough one here. You're missing Brahms, your center, and then you're missing Ham, who's one of the better linemen you've got. And then, of course, you don't have Manning so it's 3 guys, and they really only played 7. I mean, they didn't play, a lot of guys. Killian Zaire played, and Manning and Alec Jackson would rotate. And so not a lot of depth there with Brahms out and Ham out and Manning out. An injury puts them in a tough spot. It's going to be those guys getting a lot of reps in bowl practice and and a lot of reps in the game. So that's kind of it from a roster standpoint in terms of opt-outs. It's good that there's not more. Like Smoke Monday's a guy that is a senior that looks like he's going to enter the NFL draft. He's a guy that could have, I guess, opted out, but it looks, Harsin didn't mention him, so maybe he'll play. I had reported on the corner at auburnlive.com previously that Tank Bigsby, Roger McCreary, and Zacoby McClain all didn't report to bowl practice. Of course, they scheduled a meeting with Tank and finally convinced him to commit to coming back and not leave. But the other two we kind of thought because they didn't really report to bowl practice. Let's talk about the quarterback position a little bit. It is the first time we've had an opportunity to talk to Bryan Harsin about Bo Nix and his decision. And Harsin kind of took the high road. He basically said, hey, I don't want to. He credited Bo for graduating from Auburn, so he gave Bo, props for that, for graduating in 3 years, and said he's a graduate of Auburn. And so when people think about Bo transferring, just remember that he graduated and has a degree from Auburn University, and so that is important for, I think, Bo's legacy and for how people remember him. But Bryan Harsin was quoted as saying, "That's one of the things, sitting in these visits with families. I didn't sit in the home with Bo and have these conversations, but it's important to the families that their sons graduate. That's the number one thing that you talk about in those home visits. He made a decision. At the end of the day, he's no longer with our program. To be honest with you, I'm going to focus more on the guys that we have now and where we're going." So not a surprising comment from Harsin. I mean, look, Bo Nix has a history with Auburn from before Harsin, and Harsin's not really going to get into that. He's based, Harsin didn't recruit him. He doesn't owe Bo Nix anything just because he's a legacy, and Bo Nix doesn't owe Bryan Harsin anything. So I think probably a smart move for Bryan Harsin to just say he graduated, and I'm going to focus on my team now. And not continue down any type of path about why Bo transferred, or are you disappointed, or how the meetings went, or just anything. It's just not worth it. So kind of addressed it, but kind of wanted to talk about his team a little bit. Mentioned that TJ Finley is close to 100%, should be healthy for the bowl game, and freshman Demetrius Davis, D. Davis, is getting reps in practice. We should see him in the game. What capacity? Who knows? We should see some packages for him in the game. Hopefully it's enough where he gets an opportunity. Hopefully he doesn't just get in there. You think back to the way Gus would use Malik Willis, and he would just get in there way late in the game and run some zone read. And we never really got a good feel for Malik Willis. It'd be nice if Demetrius Davis got some actual possessions in this game that matter, where he doesn't just get in there maybe and just run a quarterback draw. I mean, he's athletic, but actually let him get in there and run a possession, and have a few of those. That would be nice, because I know you want to win the game, but you got to let D. Davis get some opportunities in a game here. It's too good an opportunity to pass up for your future. I mean, so it's a tough balance, because you do want to go into the offseason with momentum and win the game. So you don't want to mess with the rotation too much. You want guys to get a rhythm, but I think you need to see what Demetrius Davis can do, and he'll have an opportunity in practice too. I mean, he can show what he's about in practice and preparation and things like that. But looks like we're going to see him in a game, which is going to be exciting. And then Bryan Harsin talked about, hey, whether or not they would add a quarterback. He said, we'll decide what we do after that. Like any other position, we've got to bring in the right guy. We'll figure out what that looks like. We have good players on our team right now. We're still building our roster. We're not done recruiting. We still have another signing period. Recruiting never ends, and that's a good thing. We're trying to bring in the best people in our program. That's no different for our quarterback. So they're definitely looking in the transfer portal for a college quarterback, no question about it. And so we'll see if they can land somebody. The other kind of note that he talked about was he talked about the offensive coordinator position. Now, we at Auburn Live have already reported that Austin Davis will be the next offensive coordinator. We reported that on Wednesday, who is the current Seattle Seahawks quarterback coach. Nothing's changed with that. There's just some logistical things that they've got to work through. Because Davis is an NFL quarterback, NFL coach. You've got NFL contracts and the NFL season's going on. So that's just tricky to work through. But that's kind of what they're doing now is, can Davis break that contract? Does he have to work out the season and show up in a month? Sort of how does that work? But we fully expect Austin Davis to be the guy. Now the question is in what capacity. We think he's going to come in and probably be the quarterback coach and offensive coordinator, but we think Bryan Harsin may very well call the plays next season. Bryan Harsin even talked about that today in the press conference. He said he's more involved in the offense right now, as you would imagine. There's no OC, but definitely say he's more involved, and I think you might see him stay involved once they hire Austin Davis. But here's some things that Bryan Harsin said about the offensive coordinator position. He said, the big key to me really is getting the right person in there. Scheme, how we coach the quarterback. I want somebody in there that knows that. I want somebody in there that's going to be elite at bringing in the best players at that position as well. Kind of sounds like Austin Davis. I mean, Austin Davis coaches the position. So in terms of quarterback development, you've got that there. And then if you think about somebody like Austin Davis, he's about 30. I think he's 33 years old. He was a 4-year starter in college. Was one of the best players in Conference USA at Southern Miss. Threw 80-plus touchdowns in his career. Had a 7-year career in the NFL. Most backup duty, but the guys played for the Seahawks and the Browns and the Rams. And so he's played for some teams. He's got an NFL career. He's an energetic guy. And the quarterback he's coaching right now is Russell Wilson. So I mean that's a lot of things that would check a box for me if I was looking for a guy that could recruit. Young, energetic, NFL background, played in college, played in the NFL, from the South, from Meridian, Mississippi. I think that guy's going to be able to appeal to some quarterbacks and bring in really good players at that position. Bryan Harsin also said, I'm more about getting the right person in there to be a part of our staff and to help bring out the best in the coaches in that room as well, and the players on that side of the ball. I think that's important. It's really just, this is a chance right now on the offensive side of the ball. It's a little bit different because I've been a part of that. The quarterback position and coaching that position is different because I've been a part of that as well, and I'm enjoying that. So for Harsin, obviously it goes back to fit as well. From everything I understand about Austin Davis, I think the fit would be great. I think Austin Davis is a solid dude, and I think the fit is fine there. Interesting quote from Harsin on bringing out the best in the coaches as well as the players. That's an interesting quote. I don't know if that's an indictment on Mike Bobo, because you think about, you had to dismiss Cornelius Williams 4 games in and make a switch there, and so just that's speculation. But you wonder, if, when you're thinking about that, how much did Mike Bobo help Cornelius Williams or Eric Kiesau or Cornell Williams? How much did Mike Bobo make those coaches better? That's an interesting part of Harsin's decision process, and one that you don't normally think of. You're going to think of, can they call plays or can they recruit? But are they going to mesh with the rest of the offensive coaches? Can they make them better? And so I would think Austin Davis's NFL career in his 3 years with the Seahawks with Pete Carroll, one of the best NFL coaches there is, I would think that's a lot of good experience, a lot of good things that he could bring potentially to that offensive room. So Davis is still expected to be hired. Nothing's changed there. Bryan Harsin said there's been a lot of interest, which you always hear, but he's focused on finding the right one. He said he's talked to several, and all that good stuff. All about finding the right fit, the right person. So I mean, look, we think it's going to be Austin Davis. It's just a matter of time, and so he's gonna play that card until they officially announce it. So that there can be a moment of hiring him, and they got to work through stuff. He's not gonna release anything, premature when they're trying to work with the NFL or work with the Seahawks and figure out, those contracts are tough sometimes. So that's why he's, basically, playing it like he is in terms of, hey, we're just still looking and all that good stuff. That's kind of how you have to handle it when you have these NFL guys. So that's kind of the gist of it. Bryan Harsin meeting with the media ahead of the Birmingham Bowl. Some interesting comments, obviously some opt-outs that we kind of expected. And it'll be a tough look. It'll be a tough game for Auburn, not just because of the opt-outs, but, obviously you still have a backup quarterback in TJ Finley who's yet to win a game. if you don't count Georgia State. And so, it's going to be tough. You're down some linemen. You're down your best linebacker in Zacoby McClain, your best corner in Roger McCreary. And so we'll see. Derek Hall, what does he do? Looks like he'll probably play, but he's a guy that could also go pro. I mean, he could always make a decision late to not play. You never know. So, and then you got to worry about where the team's at. You had 4 guys transfer out, and so is everybody that's there? Are they in? Or is everybody bought in and ready to win this football game? It's a tough one when you're 6-6 and you lose 4 games in a row at the end of the year. It's a tough spot, especially for a first-year coach. Tough spot. But if you're Harsin, the good thing is in terms of building a program and projecting to next year, you're about to have a really good couple of weeks of finding out what players that are coming back next year, what players are bought in, what players are tuned in, what players really care, and who's not. So if you're a guy that's coming back next year, but you're sitting here going, well, we're 6-6, what's the ball game matter anyway? They're going to see that. And that's what they're going to be looking for. So it might give them some indication when they look to next year about guys that they can, elevate next year and who's in it and who's not and things like that. So it's still a critical period. But that's kind of it. That's it for Bryan Harsin. We'll talk to players on Friday and see what they have to say as Auburn prepares for this bowl game. It's about 11 days away. Should be a great game, honestly. I know Auburn struggled down the stretch, but Auburn had a chance to win the South Carolina game, blew it. Had a chance to win Mississippi State, blew it. Had a chance to win Alabama, blew it. So it's not like they were getting blown out in those games. They could very well could have or should have won those games. It's just what can Auburn put on the field with a backup quarterback against a very good Houston team that hasn't played the competition Auburn has, no, but still a dangerous team in Birmingham. I would imagine Houston will bring some fans and travel, probably 10. I bet you they'll bring 10,000 fans, but Auburn should have 30 at that new Protective Stadium in downtown. So it should be a good game. Great venue, great stadium where UAB plays now. Really nice, right across the street from a Topgolf. It's a good location, and it's a brand new, nice stadium. So it should be a fun game to go to if the weather's nice. I mean, it should really. It's not Old Legion Field. I mean, it's a cool stadium, and so it should be a really good game. I mean, you got Houston, the top 20 team, against an Auburn team that, is a couple of decent second halves away from being 9-3. Is a knockdown pass from beating Alabama, the number 1 team in the country. It's a good team if they can play like it. It's just what Auburn team do you get? We don't know. So we'll kind of figure that out. That's kind of it. We'll come back. Here in a couple days and talk some more as Auburn football prepares for the Birmingham Bowl in Houston. And we'll come back with a modcast, recruiting Jeffrey and Cole. You'll catch them on some shows as well, talking recruiting. Auburn basketball plays St. Louis on Saturday at St. Louis. Should be a tough physical game, by the way. St. Louis I think they played that game in Birmingham last year. It was a low scoring game. And so that'll be a physical game for Auburn, a kind of a different type of test. But a good test for Auburn, and so we'll see what they've got on Saturday as well. Bruce Pearl and the guys going up to St. Louis, so that'll be a good one. All right, appreciate everybody for joining us. AuburnLive.com. Go subscribe if you're not a part of the community. Man, we'd love to have you. We're growing like crazy, and so come be a part of a really great thing we have going on at AuburnLive.com, part of the On3 Sports Network. I'm Justin Hokanson. We'll see you next time.